Welcome to the Happy Mama Movement podcast. I'm Amy Taylor-Kabbaz. I would like to start by acknowledging the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation on which this podcast is recorded as the traditional custodians of this land, and pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. And as this podcast is dedicated to the wisdom and knowledge of motherhood, I would like to acknowledge the mothers of this land, the elders, their wisdom, their knowing, and my own elders and teachers. Welcome back, everyone. On the 22nd of July 2014, I registered my very first website, wanting to start sharing my story, my research and insights into motherhood, which means it has now been 9 years of creating content, and for most of that time, creating podcasts, both in this podcast and a previous incarnation, sharing stories of motherhood and matrescence from all over the globe. And so I think we often don't pause and celebrate enough in our current culture. And I also know that we have so much knowledge hidden in the archives of this podcast. And so in recognition of that, the team and I are going to be bringing you some micro matrescence moments over the next few weeks, highlights and insights from some of our episodes that you can listen to. And if you want to go deeper, pop into the show notes and see which episode to go back to and listen. Thank you for being here, perhaps for the last 9 years or just for the last few minutes. This is how we change the way we support mothers. I'm so excited to share with you a beautiful conversation I've had with Jasmin Lesniak. Jasmin is the founder of Motherground Retreats, a beautiful idea of retreats, sometimes just for mamas, sometimes for mamas and babies, and now for mamas, dads and babies to catch their breath, to stop for a moment and figure out what being a parent really means for them. I can't wait for you to hear Jasmin's story.
Well, my motherhood experience wasn't a conscious decision. It was actually a surprise pregnancy at age 34 that catapulted me into figuring all of that out, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah. So, which has been really interesting in itself anyway. I think, it wasn't like a traditional get married and consciously choose to start a family kind of scenario, which is how I'd probably imagined that it would have been. Mm-hmm. It was a relatively, unexpected situation.
And when that little boy came along and you had really changed your life to make this work as best you could, it turned out not the way you thought, did it?
Exactly.
And that became quite obvious quite quickly, did it?
Yeah, so that's right. It was quite a quick realisation that the relationship wasn't going to work. And so it was within about 6 months of my son being born that I decided to move back to the city to be around my support networks. And again, that period of time is a bit of a blur too. I think there was just so much, my whole attitude was just about getting through it and making decisions and just moving.
Survival.
It really was survival, I think. And there's probably trauma in there too, which is probably why I've pushed it down. But look, I think that there were a few realisations and struggles at that point. I didn't actually feel as supported as I had expected when I'd moved back. But as I say, that was, it's sort of hard to stop and feel at that time because I just needed to keep moving.
So how did you go from that place of being on your own with a 6-month-old, just in survival mode, to realising that a support network, a place for us to just stop and breathe is what we need?
Well, I think looking back at it now that I actually believe that I was probably near breaking point, and I don't even know what that would have looked like, but I remember feeling that there was one particular point, and I remember in the middle of the night, he was asleep, and I remember just feeling like, okay, I can't do anything else. I can't make one more decision. I need to put my feet back on the ground. I need to catch my breath, and I need to process the enormity of what's happened, and not just the situation, but just, even the pregnancy and the birth and being a mum and having this little human depending on me. I wanted the space to process that, and I knew that I needed to find something for me. It was at that point, it was a matter of urgency, and it felt like I needed to be cradled and nurtured, and everything that I was giving back to my child, I felt the little one in me needing that as well.
You don't necessarily want to leave your child. You actually just want to have some space where you feel nurtured with your child, don't you?
Exactly, that's right. And, I think that, look, it is different for everybody. I mean, I think some people do need that space for themselves just to, catch up on sleep and, maybe on our retreats we actually have nannies there. So we have a creche set up where the mums can actually, have some time for themselves. But often they do just want to go for a walk and just hold their baby and just reconnect with them, do some yoga with them, whatever it might be. But it's really just about coming back to yourself, reconnecting with yourself, however you can do that. Another thing that comes to mind is that there's I think at the beginning of the formation of these retreats, it was really quite simple. It's about a space to go and relax and be nourished and reconnect. And then as I've watched them evolve, it's actually become that what has happened organically is that there is this need for women to share and be supported. And throughout that, it sort of somehow brings us back in with our own inner voice, our own inner mothering voice. And each time I see the mums walk away saying, I actually feel so much more confident in my ability to mother my child or my children, I actually realised that one mum said, I actually realised that it was this revelation for her where she said, I realised that I'm actually the only mum that she could ever have, and that, her and I together have this sort of unspoken language, and we just know how to do it together, and I've just got to trust in that more instead of what I should be doing. And it can be really empowering to come back to yourself and realise that actually all the wisdom and all the knowing is within you. It's just about listening and trusting that voice. So that's pretty powerful.
And that realisation only comes from space, comes from being able to step back and think things through without being on that treadmill of busyness.
But you're right, that comes up a lot on the retreats as well. A lot of the things that, a lot of the topics and stories that the mums want to share are often around relationship dynamics or, not knowing how to navigate it as well as they'd like to, or having a beautiful experience and feeling really proud of that. But I think definitely for mums and dads, it's just a huge life change really. And I think at the beginning when the baby's born, the focus is really very much on how's the baby going. There's a question of how's the mum going. Sometimes, how are you going, Dad? Great, da da da. But
not very often.
No, not very often. And it can be quite a confusing time for both mum and dad, understanding how their relationship now works. Where is the focus? Where is the priority? Is it around? It all seems to be around the baby. So I felt that it would be quite a beautiful offering to invite new families to come along. So the parents and the baby, and for it really just to be a beautiful experience.
What has motherhood taught you about yourself?
It's taught me that it's okay to be vulnerable, and that, you know, that being able to model that to your child is actually setting a really beautiful example that, you know, none of us are perfect and we're all navigating our way through it together. But, you know, I really believe, I love the quote by Leonard Cohen, which is that there's a crack in everything and that's how the light gets in. And I really believe that motherhood, you know, it brings up the biggest cracks in us, the biggest vulnerabilities, and there's an opportunity for growth at every one of those junctures if we're open to receiving it.
Thank you for being a part of this movement and for listening to these amazing insights and stories of matrescence from mothers and experts around the world. Please know that you can be a part of this revolution by being a part of our Mama Rising Coaching Certification, which is open now and we start in September. Find out all the details by going to mamarising.net. And thank you again for being here. See you next time.